The words for today are DeJure and DeFacto. DeJure, descriptive of a condition in which there has been total compliance with all requirements of law, of right, legitimate, lawful, by right and just title. In this sense it is the contrary of DeFacto. It may also be contrasted with de gratia, in which case it means as a matter of right, as de gratia means by grace or favor. Again it may be contrasted with de equitate, here meaning by law, as the latter means by equity. Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition page 382. De facto. In fact, indeed, actually. This phrase is used to characterize an officer, a government, a past action, or a state of affairs which must be accepted for all practical purposes, but is it illegal or illegitimate? Thus, an office, position or status existing under a claim or color of right such as a de facto corporation. In this sense is the contrary of de jure, which means rightful, legitimate, just, or constitutional. Thus, an officer, king, or government de facto is one who is in actual possession of the office was the supreme power, but by usurpation, or without lawful title, while an officer, king, or government de jure is one who has just claim and rightful title to the office or power, but has never had plenary possession of it, or is not in actual possession. McLeod v. United States, 229 U.S. 416.
Let's see what happens when you add another word to the mix.
Government de jure. A government of the right, the true and lawful government, a government established according to the Constitution of the nation, and lawfully entitled to recognition and supremacy in the administration of the nation, but which is actually cut off from the power or control. Said a government deemed lawful or deemed rightful or just, which, nevertheless has been supplemented or displaced, that it is to say, which receives not presently, although it received formerly, habitual obedience from the bulk of the community. Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition page 627. De facto government. One that maintains itself by display of force against the will of the rightful legal government and is successful, at least temporarily, in overturning the institution of the rightful legal government by setting up its own in lieu thereof. Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition page 375. In part. Government de facto. A government of fact. A government actually exercising power and control, as opposed to the true and lawful government, a government not established according to the Constitution of the nation, or not lawfully entitled to recognition or supremacy, but which has nevertheless supplemented or displaced the government de jure, a government deemed unlawful, or deemed wrongful or unjust, which, nevertheless, receives presently habitual obedience from the bulk of the community. There are several degrees of what is called de facto government. Such a government, in its highest degree, assumes a character very closely resembling that of a lawful government. This is one usurping government expels the regular authorities from which their customary seats and functions, and the established itself in their place, and so becomes the actual government of the country. The distinguishing characteristics of such a government is that the adherents to it in war against the government de jure do not incur the penalties of treason, and, under certain limitations, obligations assumed by it in behalf of the country or otherwise will, in general, be respected by the government de jure when restored. Such a government might be more aptly denominated a government of paramount force, being maintained by active military power against the rightful authority of an established and lawful government, and obeyed in civil matters by private citizens. They are usually administrative directly, also by civil authority, supported more or less by military force. Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition page 627.
The NRS that contain de facto and de jure status. Chapter 5 of the Nevada Revised Statutes. 1. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 704A. Section 704A, 030, Clerk defined. Clerk means the de facto or de jure county clerk or city clerk, or his successor in functions, if any. Section 704A, 052, Engineer defined. Engineer means the de facto or de jure engineer of the municipality, or his successor in functions, if any. 2. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 43. Executive Officer defined. Executive Officer. means the de jure or de facto governor of this state, mayor, chairman, president, or other titular head or chief official of the municipality proceeding under this chapter, but executive officer does not include a city manager, county manager, or other chief administrator of a municipality who is not its titular head. 3. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 11. 5. Within 1 year. A. An action against an officer, or officer de facto to recover goods, wares, merchandise, or other property seized by the officer in his official capacity, as a tax collector, or to recover the price or value of goods, wares, merchandise, or other personal property so seized, or for damages for the seizure, detention, or sale of, or injury to goods, wares, merchandise, or other personal property seized, or for damages done to any person or property in making the seizure. B. An action against an officer, or officer de facto for money paid to the officer under protest, or seized by the officer in his official capacity, as a collector of taxes, and which, it is claimed, ought to be refunded. 4. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 349. Chairman, and Chairman of the Commission defined. Chairman, or Chairman of the Commission, or any phrase of similar import, means the de facto or de jure presiding officer of the Commission, or his successor in functions if any. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 349 continued. Controller defined. Controller means the de facto or de jure state controller of the state of Nevada, or his successor in functions, if any. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 349 continued. Governor defined. Governor means the de facto or de jure governor of the state of Nevada, or his successor in functions, if any. 5. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 350. Chairman, and Chairman of the municipality defined. Chairman or Chairman of the municipality or any phrase of similar import means the de facto or de jure Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, Mayor of the city or town, President of the Board of Trustees of the school district, Chairman of the Board of Directors of any other type district, or the President thereof, or any other presiding officer or titular head of the municipality, or his successor in functions if any. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 350 continued. Clerk defined. Clerk means the de facto or de jure county clerk, city clerk, town clerk, clerk of the Board of Trustees of the school district, secretary or clerk of the Board of Directors of any other type district, or other officers of the municipality who is the custodian of any seal of the municipality and of the records of the proceedings of the municipality's governing body, or his successor in functions if any. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 350 continued. Treasurer means A. The de facto or de jure county treasurer, city treasurer, town treasurer or treasurer of any district, or his successor in functions if any. B. The county treasurer in the case of any municipality, other than a county, which has no treasurer. 6. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 396. Chairman and Chairman of the Board defined. Chairman, or Chairman of the Board, or any phrase of similar import, means the de facto or de jure presiding officer of the board, or his successor in functions, if any. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 396 continued. Chancellor of the University defined. Chancellor of the University means the de facto or de jure presiding officer of the system and its chief administrative officer, now designated as the Chancellor of the system, and formerly designated as the Chancellor of the University of Nevada system, and the President of the University of Nevada, or his successor in functions if any. Chancellor of the University does not mean the Chief Administrative Officer of either the branch of the University in Washoe County or the branch of the University in Clark County, now designated respectively as the President of the University of Nevada, Reno and the President of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 396 continued. Secretary of the Board defined. Secretary of the Board means the de facto or de jure secretary of the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada, or his successor in functions if any. 7. Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 318. A. Clerk means the de jure or de facto secretary of the district. B. Governing body means the district's board. Check your own state statutes for the words de jure and de facto and I am sure you will see similar results.